Thank you so much for being here, Andrea, Laura, Louise. That's so nice to see you. We have Andrea, who is in Florida right now, and Laura in Texas, and Louise in Switzerland, like me. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I'm very honored that you accepted. We met in different times and we kept contact. This is the beautiful connection through Facebook that is possible and through our hearts. So I'm going to introduce them in a couple of minutes. I just want to remind you why I choose this topic. With COVID, the circumstances can be very stressful. I don't know if you know, but our brain is already tends to see negative stuff more than positive ones. So if you add COVID, you can feel that you can be even more stressed. However, it's also an opportunity to shift to another paradigm and to start listening more closely to our heart. So it's also a great opportunity to do so. Personally, in 2005, I had a burnout, and this is where my journey, my path started. And I get interested in positive psychology, in many things, and quantum physics, neurosciences, because I was really trying to feel better. Because the circumstances were not good, because my health was very bad. And this was a gift in a certain way. 10 years later, I learned so much. However, it was not comfortable. And my guests, they also have very good stories to share that they're going to share in a moment. So for personal reasons, I really think this shift from our head to our heart is critical, individually, but also collectively. We are already changing the world if we start listening more closely to our heart. Our heart has a certain wisdom. Eckhart Tolle, who is an author I love, and I'm not the only one, who wrote The Power of Now, says that most of our suffering comes from our head and what we interpret, and not the reality itself, but what we think about what we live. And our heart is a solution to bypass that. So that's enough for the background and the introduction. Now I'm going to introduce you each of my guests. I'm going to start with Andrea. I have some intro for you, Andrea. Andrea, as I said, she's in Florida right now. Her last name is Valeli, and she's a transformational coach. She and her husband, Lee, are the founders of Shift Happens, a transformative coaching and training company specializing in business and personal coaching and retreats. She's a registered 3PGC practitioner. 3PGC means 3 Principles Global Community. She's going to speak about it, I'm sure. And she's a contributor to many magazines, radio, and even 2 TV shows, including CBS Morning News. This is for Andrea, and she's going to be the first one to answer some of the questions. And we have Laura. Laura, she's in Texas. And for Laura, she has also so many different attributes. She's a life coach, a trainer and facilitator who loves studying, reading, and attending workshops. She's a Thetahealing Instructor, a Heartmath mentor and trainer, and a Chopra Center meditation and perfect health instructor. Sorry, I hope that you have so many different titles, all of you, as well as a Divine Intelligence Facilitator and a spiritual life coach. So many titles and so many qualities. And I know, me too, I just love, like you, learning. I mean, learning, we have so much to understand. We are so infinite that there is this craving for more, but in a very good way, like expanding and expanding. So that's for Laura, and she's also going to answer some of the questions. And finally, we have Louise. Louise, how do I pronounce your last name?
Legat.
Legat, yeah. Louise, She is a next generation leadership catalyst. She supports leaders to become the visionaries, disruptors, and change makers who are building the sustainable world of tomorrow, correct? She is the founder and CEO of Positive Energy Leaders and the creator of the Positive Energy Academy. That is an online course, incubator, and transformational community for leaders to create fulfilling, meaningful work that has a positive impact. And you will have their full profile and website under in the comments later on and on the YouTube page, because you can find this, this is registered and taped, and you can find the full interview also on my YouTube page tomorrow. This is time to start with the questions. So they're going to answer the first question, all of you, my dear friends, because I really think that this is a very personal topic. And if we are here, is that we really walk the talk and that we had our own challenges. And so the first question, it's your own story and turning points and wake-up calls that led you to start living from your heart. Andrea, can you start, please?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for doing this. And thank you, beautiful ladies, that I get to share this journey with. So thank you to all of you. My journey began pretty close to yours, Caroline. I think it was in about 2006 or 2007. And what had happened was I grew up a pretty happy kid, and things came, I didn't have too many struggles or things like that. But my biggest struggle was approval. That looked very real to me. And I sort of had a bucket list for myself of things that I thought would bring me happiness. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I had had those things. And I was sort of like looking around my house saying to myself, well, wait a second, I have the house, I have the job, I have the child, the husband, I have all of these things. Where is it? Where's my happiness? Why do I still feel this emptiness inside? And someone gave me the book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And that was really my turning point. And the reason that, the book is by Brian Weiss. It's a wonderful book, and it's about reincarnation. And it wasn't so much the reincarnation that struck me. It was the sort of overall message was that we are love. We are here to love. That is our essence. And that rang so true to me. It was like I read that book and it just said, yes, I felt that deep truth. So that for me was the turning point as far as looking in this direction. So what was so interesting in my life was that, as I'd said, things were pretty good in my life. I didn't have anything really traumatic happen, but once I started looking in this direction, I sort of felt like, oh, wow, thank goodness I did, because then my life absolutely went into a state of chaos. And I was so grateful that during the state of chaos, I was able to look within for my peace rather than blaming the world for what was happening. I had gotten to a point in my life where I said, I'd had everything, and then I'd had nothing. And then there was a ton of betrayal, and the betrayal was even worse than I thought it was. And it was on so many different levels, this situation. And, of course, it affected, I had a child, and my financial situation, and my credit, my work, just everything was sort of like blown up. And on the outside, it really looked like a complete disaster. And technically it was, but my moment of truth was when I sort of like the lid blew off of it, was I had felt as though I was stuck. That stuckness looked very, very real to me in my situation. And I had a moment which happened out of the blue. We were, going to counseling. We were on our way to counseling, and something occurred in the car, this conversation we were having. And I remember I went into the counseling session, and I went by myself. And I just said to this lovely woman, I said, you know what? I'm done. And at that moment, all of the things that looked like they were in the way of me supporting myself, living on my own with my child, like all of these things that looked like I could not move through, suddenly I saw a way to do it. And it wasn't even that I knew what the way was, but I knew that I could. And when I tell you I had nothing, I had no credit, I did not have a job. I had a very small coaching practice at the time that certainly wasn't going to sustain me and my daughter. It looked as, and I also knew that when I left this relationship, I was not going to be, that fairness was not going to happen. It was one of those things where I knew that I was going to be on my own. And where in one moment that looked scary and impossible, in a next moment, I had no idea how I was going to pull off creating a sustainable life for myself and my daughter, but I knew I could, and I had no idea how. And that was my, biggest aha as to, the only thing that ever gets in the way, like you said, Caroline, is our thinking, is that our thought looks very real to us. And we don't realize that our thinking is transitory, it's illusory, it comes and goes, and we get to make meaning of it. If we don't know that, our low grade thinking, our, very innocent, insecure thought looks true. If we don't know the illusory nature of it, if we don't understand that, we have low moods, we have high moods, there's moments when everything looks possible and there's moments when nothing looks possible. And the more we buy into the story of nothing is possible, the more that becomes our reality. I very clearly saw that with just like Laura was saying before we started this interview, we were all agreed that we sort of came into this not preparing for what we're going to say, because we know that wisdom will come through us. And at that moment, I saw the truth in that. So over time, the more I've been looking in this direction of the principles, which I know that we will get into, I see that not only am I divinely held, we are all divinely held. And my most powerful tool is right there within me. It's my listening. It's my ability to trust this wisdom that pours through me, that I have innate well-being in me at every single moment. At every single moment, everything is possible. So it doesn't mean that I walk around like a Pollyanna, in prayer position, just hoping things work out. I have a business that I run, But what it does mean is that when I am having insecure thought, I know not to trust it. I know that it's not coming from my heart. I know that it is something that I can either buy into or not buy into. And I've learned that deep truth, not to trust my insecure thinking, to understand that I'm going to go up and down the roller coaster of life, and that's okay. I don't have to be afraid of it because it is transitory. And I think where we get ourselves into trouble is that thinking looks very real to us. We grab onto it. We take the train to Crazy Town. We, set up camp. We hop off the train, set up camp, and then that becomes our world. Instead of knowing that, we're all going to take the train to Crazy Town because we're normal and we're human, but we don't have to get off the train and set up camp. We will, by our nature, by this life that flows through us, we will naturally come back to the station and we will settle and we'll be able to see. And I think that's what happened for me in that moment in the counselor's office, when I just knew, I don't know how, but I can do this on my own. I can do it. At that moment, I just saw very, very clearly that I did not have to know what every step was going to be along the way. There was something in me that said, this is possible. And what was so interesting was that at that moment, I really knew probably a quarter of what the craziness that was actually going on in my life was. So when I left, life actually got crazier because things came out that I wasn't aware of. But what was so beautiful was that it was okay. It was okay. That was not my identity. I was not bound by what had happened to me. And as you and I know from working with Robert Holden, life happens for us, not to us. It was an experience that I had had, and I could either buy into it or not. So I chose to allow this beautiful life force, that runs through all of us, to guide me, rather than getting stuck in what had happened or what had transpired or what I thought about it or my judgments about it. So I know we want to stick to a time frame, so I'm going to glue my lips shut, but thank you.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. Those are very eye-opening moments. They are quantum leaps, as we know, and life is never the same. And when you have such faith, and we cannot speak about our heart without faith, which goes together, And there is this inner conviction. We don't know where it's coming, but this is our nature. And the realization of it comes at certain time, very often when we are lost, because when we are on our knees, our heart is more open. So thank you very much for your story. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And we are going to follow with Laura. Laura, please.
Hi, Caroline. Hi, Andrea. Hi, Louise. Hi, everybody. Thank you for hosting this. My passion is following my heart, so I'm an honor to be here. Thank you. So my story began when I was little. I have a different story like Andrea. I do have a lot of trauma in my life, although nobody knew about it. You know, it was like that kind of trauma that nobody knows because you're not allowed to tell what's going on with you and certain things in your life. So I was abused as a child. I was raped as a teenager. I have a very bad accident when somebody died. So it was like a lot of things going on to my life. And then I had an abuse marriage. So there was a lot but I have a lot of a background story. And now I love my story because my story made me who I am. So I am in love with who I am today. So I'm super grateful for everything that happened to me, for me to be here. And I am now able to have so much compassion from many kinds of stories because I have lived many kinds of stories. So I'm grateful for that. So my story began when I have been also very intuitive all my life because everything that happened to me, you have to be intuitive when things happen to you because you have to know what's going on, what's going to happen next. So you're ahead of the game. So when I became 40, 11 years ago, I asked myself if I wanted to live my life the way I was living it. And I had this beautiful party with my dear friends, small party, and I was looking at everybody and I was saying to myself, I am not happy. I don't even know what happiness is. So what it's like, I'm very uncomfortable with my life. So what is that I want? And I just asked the question, and immediately the next day, my life started to change. So this healing technique, theta healing, came into my life, and I just discovered that I was not weird. You know, there was things that I knew they were true. You know, they were like other people like me. So I kind of started to come out of my shell. And of course, when you want to change, things are going to happen for you to change. So my whole life started crumbling. Like I moved from where I was living. I was living in Mexico. I moved to the United States and I divorced and everything started not going in the way that I thought I was wanting. I also flooded when I moved to the States. Like so many things happened to me. And everything was for the best, you know, everything was for me to come out from this shell, to be who I am really, and to inspire others to do what they want to do, to follow their heart, because I follow my heart. So I know how to inspire others to do the same. And I kind of know the tools. I know the know-how because I have lived the know-how. And I am a very science person, so I'm an engineer. So everything that I do for me is back up through science. I love unified physics, and I am completely. I live that as a truth. So everything that happens to me, it doesn't happen to me. I create everything. So I am very empowered by that because I can change that. If I am creating something I'm not liking, I have to pay attention, okay? And in order to manifest, to create what you want, you either follow your mind or either you follow your heart. And I know that my conditions are in my mind. I know that my victim state is in my mind, not in my heart. So that was kind of the shift that did it for me, because I started to follow my heart instead of following my thoughts. Now I know I am not my thoughts, and anybody is their thoughts. So anybody reactions towards me come from their heart. It's only their thought process, their subconscious belief, their conditioned self. So I have been empowered by following my heart, and I live in a different world. I will say that, like, everybody's living in a world. Sometimes they live with me, sometimes they don't, but I'd allow them to live in the world that they want to. I love my world, and I will invite everybody to live in my world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Caroline. Story. Yeah, we met during a workshop in Cancun together with Dr. Joe Dispenza, just to do the link with the quantum physics. And Andrea mentioned that we met in New York for the workshop with Robert Holden, because I'm on a quest like you also. I was looking for answers. That's how I met those incredible people, including Louise, where I attended a workshop. So this is what's incredible when we are on this path or in a quest. There is something so beautiful about it, an openness to life that is so beautiful. Thank you so much. It's very inspiring, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So happy to be here and with these goddesses.
Great. So now we are going to go to Louise. Louise, please tell us your story, your haha, your wake-up calls. You have also quite a story, and quite young, I believe.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline, and thank you, Andrea and Laura, for sharing your beautiful stories. And hello, everybody. In terms of my story, in some way, has some similarities, or at least the beginning, as Andrea, in that. It would be 20 years ago now, and I was in my late 20s. And at the time, I was a successful lawyer in a leading law firm in the City of London. I was what we'd call a high potential, and I had the golden pathway in terms of career all set. So, I really resonated with Andrea when you were talking about that tick list. So I ticked all the boxes, you know, had the great salary, the great career, the lovely house, also the right lawyer boyfriend. So my parents were also very happy about that. Everybody was things were covered, all the bases were covered. But I also had a dirty secret, which was that every day going into work, I just wanted to sob. And so I was in London, and you know, there's a double-decker London buses. And so I would go to the top of that London double-decker bus, red bus, and I would sit at the front. And the reason why I would sit at the front was that if I suddenly would have tears streaming down my face, nobody would see them. And I would dig my nails into my hands all the way going to work. And the problem is that I literally didn't know why I wanted to cry. And to be honest, you know, we were working very long hours. It was one of those firms where you kind of live there. I just thought it was stress. I thought it was just that I was working too hard. I didn't know anything about really listening to my heart or anything like that. And to be honest, I think I would still be there. What then subsequently happened, and I remember very vividly because it was December 1999, I had an operation that went wrong. So I went for a minor operation into the hospital, and I had major complications as a result of that operation. And the upshot of it is within a few weeks, I was informed that the doctors thought that I would never walk again. I'd caught one of the infections that you can catch in the operating theatre. I was pumped with IV antibiotics, but basically I was left with constant pain, no energy. And I'll always remember that moment when I was kind of lying in the hospital bed and the doctors basically saying, look, we've tried everything and we think this is going to be your life now. And so that was my pivotal moment. And why it became a pivotal moment is I'll always remember what happened in my brain. And at that point, I asked myself, okay, Lou, so this may be it. You know, they might be right. And if so, if you never walk again, then what will you regret? And for me, I thought what would come would be not being a partner in the law firm that I was working day and night for. But what actually came was not doing the Inca Trail in Peru. Now, why that was significant is that up until that moment, I didn't know I wanted to do the Inca Trail in Peru. And if I was honest, I didn't actually know. I knew Peru was in South America, but I wouldn't have been able to place it on a map. And I'll always remember thinking, oh my God, you are so off track that the only thing you're going to regret is doing a trek in a country that you can't even locate on a map. And so it was that real moment of, okay, right, something's off. I'm completely disconnected, and I don't even know what I really want to do with my life. Sorry. Sorry about that. A bit too intense, I think, for the pods. As a result of that, in that moment, I made a decision, and that I would live with no regrets. And so if this moment ever came again, I wouldn't have regrets. And so I chose to live my purpose. And I had no idea what that meant, but I decided to go on this grand adventure to find out. What was interesting is that as a result of the operation, actually in the end I got better. So that's another story, which I think will take more time, so I won't go into that. But what was really interesting is I'll always remember that there was like this kind of recurring intuition thought in my mind during the whole time. And it was very clear. It said, this is your wake-up call. And if you do the emotional work, you will get better. And I remember I was like, what the hell's a wake-up call? And what does emotional work mean? But it did start a path to really kind of dig deep into myself and ultimately really understand what I was made for. And at that point, it set off just a completely different track for me. So I got better, I changed careers, then I went on to create my own business. But throughout the whole point and that whole period, it was really listening to myself so that I could truly live with no regrets and as much as possible live what I thought was my purpose. And that's how I discovered what living from the heart really was about. Because what I always say to people that I work with is that this is not where your purpose lives. This is where your purpose lives. And so there's a really important shift that has to be made in terms of, are you going to keep doing what you have been told you're here for, or are you going to start doing what you're actually made for? And that's been my life for the last 20 years. So.
Thank you very much, Louise. Really inspiring as well. So for the people listening to us, they can see that the four of us were challenged, and this doesn't need to be, but in some ways, sometimes, yes, when we are challenged, and me for my health, you too, and for trauma, and Andrea also circumstances and relationships, and we are shaken. When we are shaken, finally we wake up sometimes also, and this is the positive side of it. It doesn't need to be this way, but sometimes human beings need a wake-up call. You make me laugh when you say, what was a wake-up call, and what's this emotional work your intuition was telling you? So chaos, we know in the quantum model, and Laura, but this is true that sometimes chaos, we think, oh, what's wrong? I'm doing something wrong. But sometimes it gives us a signal that we are reorganizing our energy. So that's the positive side of it. And with Joe Dispenza, but others, we learned that when the energy gets reorganized, it feels like chaos, and we're like, what the hell, what's going on? But this is a sign that things are changing in a deep state. So sometimes what we can say to people listening is that this could be a sign of evolution towards something even better, but it's scary, and we have to hold on and have faith and keep going. This is one thing I wanted to comment before going on the second part of tonight's discussion, which is about, we are going to do a second round, and I'm going to ask my guests to answer both because it's related. why on one side is it so hard? What are obstacles? We could also already discuss the thoughts, our head. We mentioned a lot our head, all of us. And I would like to also share my observation about that again through Eckhart Tolle, who I love, because we tend to think that our head is an enemy. It's not an enemy. It's part of our evolution. And all the obstacles, everything that brings us tension, it's also the opportunity to transcend it, and the result is going to be the evolution. So we should be thankful also to whatever is putting tension in our life. That's the first thing that myself, I found it very useful to understand. We will always contract in a day, in a week. It's not a problem, it's how we respond to it. So we all mentioned this head and the ego. Even the ego has its own role to play at this stage of the evolution. And when I realized that, I had some relief about it. Like, we are not all wrong, because very often we really point the human beings like, what's wrong with them? We are really helping the evolution of consciousness as well. And this is so exciting also. So the second part of our discussion is really about each of you addressing first, why is it so difficult, and what you advise us on the basis of the work with your clients, because each of you works with clients, and on the basis of your story, how do we go about living a life through our heart? You gave us some pieces already, but so we start again with Andrea. If you can address both together, perspectives on why is it so difficult and what we can do about it.
I think it's so difficult because, again, we believe our thinking and we believe that we're stuck. And when we are ruminating over thought, right, and we're living from that space, sometimes it's like we have this paper bag over our head and we just can't see another way. I liken it to being in a maze. You know, if you're in a maze, you can't see how to get out of it. You're in a maze. When we rise above the maze, we can very clearly see, oh, make a right, make a left, make another right, there you go. But when we are deep in it, it looks as though we're stuck. That was my life. I mean, that was my life. I believed that I was stuck. I believed this is it for me. It looked very, very real, and it felt very, very real. And at the time it was real. Unfortunately, I think sometimes there's a safety in our discomfort because it's what we know, you know, and sometimes we're actually in a state of fear thinking, well, it could be worse out there. And I think that can also hold us back too. Again, it just comes down to what we see is possible. And, you know, if we're in a warehouse with the lights off and all we have is a fixed flashlight, and this fixed flashlight is staring at a book, let's say, all we think is available to us is that book because that's all we can see. But when we turn the lights on in the warehouse, we can look around and say, oh my goodness, there's a whole world of availability for me, but I just wasn't able to see it because it was dark, you know. Again, we believe our thinking, and if our thinking is constricted, if our bandwidth is constricted, it's going to look as though we are stuck. And I can certainly understand that because I've been in that position myself. So the first thing when I'm working with a client is we talk about where their experience is coming from. You know, our experience is only and always coming from thought in the moment. And we feel our thinking. So if that thought is, we're stuck, we feel that, and that looks very real to us. But the first thing that we explore is this inside out understanding that we do not live in an outside in world. We live in an inside out world. Most of us believe, unless we're having this conversation, that we are an effect of the world. And once we start exploring that, we are literally feeling our thinking and we're seeing the world through our own lens, we can see that there's infinite possibilities. So the first place that we would start is to just simply explore together, where do you think your experience is coming from? You know, it would be like if all four of us went to a movie together. We would all have a very different perspective of the movie. I'll never forget, one of my best friends said to me, "Oh my God, there's this great movie. You've got to go see it." I said to my husband, "We got to go see this movie." And we were in the movie and I'm like, what is she thinking? This is the worst movie. Well, the movie is the movie, but we don't see the movie. We see the thinking that we have in the moment about the movie. Now, maybe if I was in a different mindset when I went to go see the movie, I would have seen it differently. You know, it's kind of like going back and reading a book before that, you know, you read a book one time, you're like, oh, that was good. And then you go back and read it again and you see things, you're like, is this a new version? Did they just edit this? You know? So the first thing that we do, or that I do with my clients, is I explore where they think their experience is coming from. And, you know, once we start to look at that together, so again, I'm not telling them, I'm looking with them. We can look at their lives. We can, you know, when we explore, there's opportunity to see. So I'm not telling somebody, we're looking together in that direction to see what is true for them. And a lot of times, once you just start looking, just start paying attention, just start exploring that, you know, you get these aha moments, which I think were the moments that sort of woke us all up in different ways as to, oh, what's true, what's really available for us. So I hope I answered in the question as best I could.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have another advice or something that you have noticed with your clients that work very well? This is a way to open your perspective on things, because we have filters, as you said, and neurosciences shows how each of us, your movie example is really perfect. We live differently because our story is different, our limiting beliefs are different, our culture is different, the language even, so we don't interpret the same way. What else is working very well for your clients?
Well, you know, it's going to sound silly, but I remind my clients to breathe. Sounds really silly, but breathe into their heart. You know, imagine that we can actually breathe into this space. Now we can't, we breathe in through our nose. I always, you know, you always want to breathe in through your nose, but I imagine that I'm breathing into here. And what that does is that just wakes up this emotional intelligence. And, you know, a busy mind never solved anything well. So quiet your mind. It's in the quiet that our wisdom is clear. You know, our wisdom's always within us. But it's if we want easy access to it, spend some time in the quiet. So for everybody, it's going to be different. Again, it's not in the doing, it's in the being. You know, there's no recipe for, hey, take a walk. It comes from our being. It comes from understanding that this innate intelligence is within all of us. However, is it helpful to take a walk to clear your mind? Sure is. Is it helpful to do yoga? Well, for me it is. I like yoga. Is it helpful to go to the beach? I live near the beach. It's really easy for me to do that. Yeah, it's absolutely helpful. Is the beach what's bringing me peace? No. Is the walk what's bringing me peace? No. Is the yoga what's bringing me peace? No. That's coming through me. However, are those great ways to encourage our busy mind to slow down? Absolutely. So it's whatever works for you individually. I take a walk every morning without fail. Usually, probably 98% of the time, I take a walk without my phone, just me. And that is my me time. And that's when I feel like wisdom comes to me. But I know it's not the walk. Just like, you know, I know that Eckhart Tolle shares this, you know, do whatever feels good. However, it's not the walk that's bringing me the peace of mind. It's not the walk that's quieting my mind. It's me. However, if those things are helpful, you know, breathing is number one, because we're just, you know, that to me, just, it's going to center us. We're going to get in touch with that intelligence that's within us. Just like you were saying, Louise, it's not coming from, you know, this is not where our dreams are coming from. This is our monkey mind that only has what we've programmed it to see. But this is where our wisdom lies. So I would absolutely say spend some time in the quiet. It might be cooking for some people. It might be folding laundry, you know, but find whatever it is that works for you that allows you to access this innate intelligence that runs through us.
Thank you very much. I completely agree that I think if people could learn how to relax, there will be so much less problems for their own sake and health, but in their family, in the colleagues. Just shut up sometimes, you know,
Yes,
don't get
yes.
into, you know, another author, and I like very much, it's Michael Singer.
Yes, yes.
He explains so well, like, don't cling. Just if we were all able not to cling, like, and get into this, will be releasing so much positive energy to do something else. So you are completely right. For me, it seems simple. It's not, because people are not so relaxed, but the positive side of it is tremendous. If we were all able to relax, settle down, say, okay, slow down.
Yeah.
There is no earthquake. Slow down, wait, and then decide. We'll be improving so much the quality of our own life and the collective. Yeah, so thank you very much. Yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you, Andrea. And Laura, about you, and I know you are a Heartmath coach, so you are going maybe to also mention this heart intelligence that Andrea started to speak about.
Yes, Caroline, we have neurons in our heart. Okay, so as well as we have neurons in our brain. So the problem is that when we come into this life, we come with these millions of neurons that start to connect each other with through our environment. So the way that we experience life, those neurons start connecting with each other through experiences and through the feelings, and we create these neural pathways, you know, and that becomes starts to be in the background. We don't even aware of that. That's our personality. Those are our habits, our personality. And as we experience life, we're going to experience life through those neural patterns. Okay, so we are not even conscious about that, because that's what we learn. Somebody that is grown in France or in Switzerland is completely different than somebody is like experienced life in Mexico. You know, you experience life through the programs that have been embedded to you through your family, through your environment, and then you live through that perspective. And that might be not something that currently somebody wants to live. But I don't think that is the first problem that everybody encounters. The first problem is that mostly people, they don't know what they want. They're in this state, like where they're like, yeah, it feels uncomfortable, but okay, I'm gonna live this, and I'm just gonna like cope with what life is throwing to me. So I think that's the first problem. But when somebody overcomes that problem, which is, I don't like where I am, I want to be somewhere different, then you kind of not know what you want. And then you have all of these experiences that come to you to show you what you want. And then people experience chaos. And you're in this chaos where you are like kind of picking up what is that I want from where I don't want. And a lot of people stay here in this drama. But when you're able to overcome that, to be clear, what is that you want from what is that you don't want, then you're like following already your heart. And if you keep doing that, and you follow the heart, which also has neurons, that has this intelligence, that is not an intelligence that has been conditioned by your family or your environment. This is your heart desire, your soul desire. Your heart is pushing you to go somewhere that maybe your patterns, neural patterns, your conditions are telling you don't go there. That's not safe. That is not something that you're supposed to do. That is not something that is allowed in your environment. That is not something that will give you money or will give you happiness, but that is your mind telling you that from your conditions. So when you're able to shift And there are techniques to shift. You just have to follow the heart. You just have to breathe. And we have a beautiful technique in Heartmath that is called the freeze frame, where just stop breathing from the heart, and then just shift your attention from your mind into your heart and just wait for you to have a different perspective, a different feeling, a different insight, okay? And just like Andrea was saying, breathing is very important. Breathing will activate the vagus nerve, and it's going to activate your parasympathetic. But placing your attention in the heart is what creates the shift. Where you place your energy, you place your where you place your attention, you place your energy. So by placing your attention in the heart, you're placing your energy in the heart. And while you're doing that, you are creating a change in your heartbeat. And because you are breathing and you're activating the vagus nerve, which triggers the parasympathetic, what you are creating is a more coherent heartbeat. So you're increasing your heart rate variability. And well, that's a difficult word, but don't pay attention to it if you don't relate to it. Just know that when you breathe deeply and when you place your attention in your heart, you're creating a coherent heartbeat. And if you have a coherent heartbeat, then you have a coherent brain. Okay, so and by having this alignment is going to stop you from having one foot at the pedal of the gas pedal and another foot at the brake. So that's what happens when you don't follow your heart. So when you said, okay, I have to do this, but my mind tells me that I can't, you know, you have the gas, the foot at the gas pedal and the brake at the same time. And that is going to mess up with your car. So when you open space for you to have your mind and your heart in alignment and create this coherence and alignment between both of them, you're allowing yourself to discover or to take up the veil that has been covering your heart desire. And then you're able to follow your heart. And yes, sometimes by following the heart, you're going to lose friends or change your life, but you have to go from these every time you're going into a greater level of coherence, you have to go through chaos. You have to destroy what the base was and create a new one. So you can have a greater level of coherence. So don't be afraid of what's going on in your life. Don't be attached to those experiences. Just become, what I say, an emotional athlete. I am an emotional athlete. I have gone through so many things that throw me a ball and I'll play it. Okay. And if you do that, if you just play the ball, if you just take this, okay, I have to overcome this. What is that I need to do next? And just do not allow your conditions to stop you from what your heart is telling you to do, then you're going to be thriving in life.
Thank you very much. And I feel
You're welcome.
Getting support like from you, Laura, and Andrea and Louise, it's not by chance that we have so many coaches, because our life is so full of so many things. And to have someone to help us getting a vision first and keep this vision alive, sometimes alone it's difficult. So I think it's also good to have someone and a coach that help us finding out what we really want and getting to give form, shape to this vision. So because our brain is going, like, there is this fight, you know, there is this intention and vision and like, whoo, and like we are hypnotized. Yeah, hypnotized. It's like, you know, the brain is like, no, you won't go there. I'm not going to let you go there. This is really, the brain is really like sometimes very, very vicious, because a part of us, we call the ego, doesn't want to leave us go and live our life from our heart. So there is this fight. And I think what comes from Andrea and you and probably Louise is a lot about, before doing anything, settling down. I mean, go back to your inner calm, because like this, your wisdom can really, you can listen to something that you don't hear. It's not the wisdom is not there. It's just there is so much chattering and blah, blah, blah. You don't hear anything. So we can see that it's first how you are able with your emotional fitness to calm down, to slow down, to trust, and let something within you take over and follow the path and be with friends who understands you, people around you. It can help because I'm sure that all of you, I mean, you have very supportive people around you who are speaking the same language, no, also to keep going. Is it the case, Laura, for you?
I am sure that having a coach is one of the best things that you can have, because your coach is your sounding board. Your coach is your accountability partner. Your coach is like hearing maybe all the trouble that you have gone through. It's always good to have somebody that will not tell you really what to do, but will open space for you to discover your inner wisdom and to see a new perspective, but nobody that is telling you what to do. It's coming from you. And you know, when we are with our friends, with our family, and we share our life experiences, oh, there is always somebody that's telling you what to do. Oh, you should do this, you should do that, you know, and that is coming from their perspective and their neural patterns, their conditions, so that are not yours. Their perspective is not your perspective. Not even like your brother or your sister, which is the same family. It really live their life through their own experience and wire their brain in a different way. So when you have a coach, your coach is not telling you what to do. It's just opening space for you to discover your inner wisdom, your new perspective, but it's coming from you, from when you want to go, not from where somebody will love to see you. That's the difference.
Thank you very much. And I think what resonates for each of us, Andrea was saying also, there are many techniques, practices, and we all need different things. And it's not one better than another.
Exactly.
And in my workshops, I also always listen to what resonates. Start trusting yourself. That's the best thing, because something may work for someone and doesn't work for you. We don't have the same lessons to learn. So the best thing you can do is to start listening to your own wisdom and trust yourself. You are never wrong. There are no mistakes. Everything you live is here to help you growing. So you start from there. You are never wrong, and everything will go, and you keep going. So thank you very much, Laura, for your perspective. And I'm going to ask Louise.
Thank you, Caroline.
Louise, your turn.
So I think the first piece, I think your first question was about the obstacles, and building on both what Andrea and Laura were saying. I think one of the big obstacles is that we don't realize that we're trained for what I call the conform path. So I work with a lot of high potentials and leaders, and for the most part, they've been trained for what I call performance. And they've been trained to perform in a system and to maintain the status quo, and ultimately to navigate that system so they can get to the top. And the whole story that we're told is once you get to the top, then you will have fulfillment and happiness. So it's this constant kind of chase to get the next promotion, the next kind of, and then someday I'm going to be successful and I'm going to be happy. And so I work a lot with people who are successful on the outside, but they feel that something is missing on the inside. So I call them successful butts. And it's a real turning point because it's about understanding that because we're constantly chasing the success on the outside, we've often, what's missing is actually ourselves. And so we need to bring ourselves back to this definition, because it's not this external success, and fulfillment's not outside of us. Fulfillment and ultimately our purpose comes from us showing up with what we're made for. And what I call it is when we're touching the world with our unique essence. And that's the piece where we end up in that place of fulfillment, and that place that we're all at some level kind of looking for. And so it really is that combination. But what I explain to people is you have to make a choice at some point between the conform path and the inspiration path. And the inspiration path is trusting in your heart, your intuition, your creativity. And it's a fundamental piece that's really important at this point in time, because what we need is, we don't actually need leaders who are just going to maintain the status quo. You know, part of this period around shifting to a more sustainable world, COVID, etc., what that's showing and bringing up is the limitations of that world. And so we need leaders who are going to be catalyzing a completely different level of creative potential. And you know, I've taught emotional intelligence since, I don't know, 2001 in organizations. And what, you know, I started when everybody was going, oh, you're going to talk about the heart, you're going to talk about emotions. Oh gosh, we don't really want to talk about that. All the way to now starting to understand that actually this is a key part of being able to access the next level that we need to, as leaders, to really access a new level for humanity, and to bring a more caring society, both in terms of ourselves, our environment, and others. And it's part of that key of that shift. So that's kind of, for me, the bigger picture on that. And I know you also were asking, well, you know, the how, you know, what does it take? And Andrea and Laura have already given some, and you've been kind of adding some really great insights in that area. What I wanted to do actually was share a last piece of my story, which I think at the same time will give some tools. So yeah, I made this grand statement that I would live with no regrets, but to be honest, I didn't think I'd be tested on it until, you know, when I'm 90 or something, or kind of, but literally 14 years later, so about 4 years ago, I found myself back in intensive care, actually. And I'd had a bad flu, and I thought, you know, temperature, etc. But I collapsed, and when I woke up, I had all the signs of a stroke. And so I was rushed into A&E, and literally the doctors said, okay, you've got to say goodbye to your partner, because at this point, I was not able to coordinate my left and my right side. I was losing the power of speaking. And they said, look, we don't know if you're going to see him again. And even if you do, we don't know what state you're going to be in. And you know you're in trouble when you can see terror in the eyes of the doctors that are speaking to you. And so in that moment, I was back there, and it was like, oh, okay, so this could be it this time. This is not just about not walking. This could be it, Lou. So what will you regret? And that time round, so I'd had 14 years of really following my heart. But I still thought, to be honest, there was an element of doing kind of cool things, because I got to do some amazingly cool things. I traveled the world, but in that moment, there was a real shift of understanding that came, because there's like this trapdoor inside my brain that just opened. And it was like I had a checklist of assessing my life and if I'd actually done what I was here to do. But I didn't know there was a trapdoor until that moment. And there were 3 questions that came up in order to be able to assess my life. And the first one was, had I experienced enough joy? And the measure of that was, had I done enough of what my heart really wanted to do? And the second question was I at peace? And the measure of that was, had I contributed enough of my true self? And the third question was, had I loved enough? And the measure of that was, had I valued myself and others enough, and also told them that they were valuable? And those were the 3 things that actually were the measure of life. And what I really understood from that place was that it's the level of self-expression, and it's really where you're showing up from and what you're contributing that makes the difference. And the way there is through the heart. It's never going to be through the head. So that's kind of where want to leave it in terms of some pointers. I use these questions with my clients and I use them for myself, and it helps me stay on track. Oh, I can't hear you, Karen. Can't hear you. I'm muted.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Core questions. I also have my own routine every morning, and sometimes it's 20, 30, 45 minutes. It depends if I meditate or answer some core questions. How do I want to live today? What will make me feel excited? And the center is always this joy, this happiness, because I really believe it's a day-to-day. It's not even in 2 months. I want to be happy now. And my burnout in 2005, where my health was very bad, and I went on a quest for 10 years before I understand what was really going on. The beauty of that is that at one point, 10 years, it's long. So at one point, 3-4 years, going through that, I was like, okay, I don't care if I don't find a solution or what is important, it's today. I can do something today. But this is because it was very difficult that I had to kind of, surrender and say, I'm not going to be happy when I'm fixed. I mean, it cannot be. And so it was difficult, but at least 10 years. And it's still so important for me. It's like, we all believe, I think, in the power of the present moment. And I think this is something so important. I know I lie to myself every time, say, okay, when? Oh, come back here. There is something to do here, right here, right now, today. You don't wait tomorrow or whatever. No, this is an illusion, Caroline, because through life experience. And there is a quote I love from Robert Holden. Andrea, I don't know if you remember, but one from this workshop I wrote is like, if you think there is something missing in your life, it's probably you. I love this quote. When he said it, I'm like, yes. And this is all about coming back to the center and be the first actor and director of our life. But we have to go through, and like Laura said it very well, many people, they don't know. They wait for a problem that wakes them up. I don't know if it's in English, that is a problem to think, but this is really what I want. And thanks to contrast, we evolved. Thanks to, I don't think so, oh, maybe, But I see in Switzerland, where we live with Louise, where people are quite very comfortable. They may have very good financial situations, so they won't call automatically into question their life. And they will realize after a certain while, oh, but maybe this is not what makes me feel alive. Though that's the negative side, that sometimes people will see a very positive side to be wealthy, but it can be a very negative side when it makes you numb. And it can be financial or something else. But numbness, conformism, what you are expected from people, from dad. And so for me, becoming an adult is to decide by ourselves, beyond the conditioning, the culture, and be able to say, okay, this I take, this I recycle, and this, no, I'm not taking it. And to really create our own lives through our own terms, honoring all what the ancestors gave to us, and physical and so many things. Thank you, gratitude, but also making evolve what we got towards more consciousness, more heart-based connections and all that. So thank you very much. I think I loved it. So if I loved it and you appreciated it, we know in terms of quantum model that our energy will reach other people. And our intention is really to share this as much as possible also, and to reach as many people as possible. We know, all of us, that it will do what it has to do. There is nothing else to do. We have to let it go now. So thank you so very much. I really enjoyed the time with you a lot. And I want to tell the people who are listening to us to look, if they didn't look at everything, to go back, to leave questions. If they have some question, you can also leave specific question to Andrea, Laura, and Louise, or myself if you want. And so I hope to do more interviews in English. Let me know if you want me to do some more interviews in English. And I think I give you the conclusion to each of you. Andrea, you want to say 2 words to conclude?
Well, thank you so much. And again, to just piggyback on what we're all saying, if we're looking outside of ourselves for the answers, we are looking in the wrong direction. We will constantly be chasing our tail because our happiness is not out there. It comes from within. And the more we look within, what happens as a result of that is the outside world just complies. Things work themselves out. So I know that's been our theme. That's where all of our answers lie. And I just wanted to say thank you. It was really lovely to be with you women, and it was just really lovely. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andrea. And I will put your website to all of you, and I encourage each of you who appreciated our discussion to continue and see what each of those guests can propose you, because you have Facebook pages and you have YouTube channels, and you are sharing a lot of information. So this is just the beginning. So go and check their Facebook page and all the social media, and you will get more insights about this topic. Thank you very much, Andrea. Laura.
Caroline, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, everybody. It was an honor to be with you guys, Andrea, Louise. I'm really happy to meet you all. And just thank you. And what I will say to everybody is to don't stop like allowing the heart to lead. So allow the heart to lead. So if your mind is like stopping you, just ask your heart. And you just ask your heart, like if your body is uncomfortable, your heart is saying no. If your heart is comfortable, your body is going to be like really comfortable as well. So just listen to your body, listen to your heart, and stop going where your mind is taking you, because your mind is taking you to the past. If you want a new future, you have to stop believing what your mind is saying and follow your heart.
Thank you, Laura. And don't be afraid to feel uncomfortable. It's also part of the evolution. So it's not that you are doing something wrong. It's even a sign that things are moving. Thank you so much, Laura. And Louise.
I think there's just a couple of things I want to say. The first thing is what I'm seeing is there's a mass awakening at the moment. You know, at the time when I woke up, I was very much on my own. And what I'm seeing is mass wake-up calls. So if you can feel that nagging feeling inside calling you, it's time. You know, the path that it will call you to is not an easy path. I'm not going to say it's all, but it's really worthwhile and it's really needed. Because I think that the one thing that I didn't expect is that by embracing my journey, I've been able to catalyze transformation in so many people around me. And yes, of course, my clients, but actually it's been around taking my friends, my family to a completely different level. And I didn't fully understand up until then or whatever, that it's my transformation, my choice to live from that inspiration piece, that actually almost created ways for other people to follow and made it easier for them. And that's how you can take things to really a tangible new level. And because we've got to stop the whole sacrificing and changing the world in deep sacrifice. That's not what this is about. It's about that deep fulfillment and showing up from that place of pure inspiration that we really evolve the world.
Thank you very much, Louise. And everything we think is small, I always like to refer to the butterfly effect, because our mind is always undermining. No, it's like a miracle. When you choose love over fear 10 times a day, it's just a miracle. It's good for your body, it's good for your heart, your biochemistry. people around you. Your vibration is different. You attract something different. It seems simple, but it has ripple effect. So don't overestimate your power to really feel good and change the world. Yeah, I think we are going to conclude like that, even if it's a little bit. So thank you, girls. And to you looking at us, share the link with people that you think could enjoy this discussion. And we see you soon for another interview. Good night and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bonsoir.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.